That's the stats. Reggie Johnson, Eugene Morgan coming to you from Love City of Atlanta, Georgia. And Eugene, this is a for and against is a series that we do is that I guess I say that we're doing because I don't know if we've ever done it. This is kind of like
No.
the first episode of it. So this is for and against where we kind of bring up an athlete and discuss the pros and cons and then kind of reach some conclusion. Even though I feel like I like to just present the facts, kind of let everybody else kind of reach their own conclusions given the set of facts that we have here.
Yeah.
So we're going to talk today about the hometown guy, Desmond Ridder, because he's been getting killed here the last few weeks here in Atlanta. People want to sit him, calling him a bum. So I went back and just wanted to see how much of a bum he really was. Because a lot of times, people they say stuff like that and they're not really. Let's get our start here on our slideshow, and let's go full screen. See if we can go full screen for the people. Yeah. So a lot of times people say these things and you don't really know how much of a bum a person is. And in this particular case, we have, let me get our logo out of the corner here. In this particular case, we have a lot of people who feel like one or two starts was enough, right? So they say, hey, well, a couple starts, it's plenty. They've seen all they need to see now from the kid. Like now it doesn't even matter what he does.
Right.
I personally think that there's a lot of football left. We don't really know what the kid's going to do. It's a long time in a season, and without him having a full season, it's hard to really know. Now, for these stats that we're going to have, that we'll be bringing up here in a few slides, I just took the first full year of a lot of quarterbacks that are out there and then compared it to his first, because he's only had 9 games.
Right.
He's only played 9 games. So I've kind of took his first 9 games and going to try to see is he really a bum. I know that you're definitely leaning towards the not wanting to keep him side, as a lot of our fans have been. And I'm kind of in the middle there, Eugene. I'm not off the guy.
Right.
But I'm not really necessarily all the way on either. I'm kind of like floating there in the middle and kind of preaching patience to a lot of my friends who wanted him out of here after like 15 quarters. No, he played like 12 quarters for my friends and coworkers. Wanted the guy out of here. They wanted him benched. And I was like, hey guys, this could end up being something. Let's give it a chance and then just see how it all works out. And I think we're going to start with the 4 slide here. Just to put this out there too, for people who don't know, Desmond Ridder has one of the highest. He's like the 3rd most winningest college coach. Did you know that? A college quarterback. Did you know that?
College quarterback, and has never lost at home either, right? He's never lost a home game. Let's not forget that fact as well. Like college and professional.
So the guy's never lost a home game. College professional, never lost a small sample size professional, but 26-0 when he was at Cincinnati, and has won 44 games in college. So we're still preaching a little bit of patience here. Now, the main thing that we wanted to start with is it is still early for the kid. Yep. We don't know how good or bad these players are this early into their career, and I'll kind of go through them, and then Eugene, you can kind of give me your kind of feedback on it.
Yeah.
He does or I should say he has shown flashes of greatness. He doesn't really turn the ball over a ton, which I like. I feel like that's accuracy. You either got it or you don't, right? Like you can either come into the league and you can either throw for over 60% or you can't. We've had great quarterbacks that have thrown in like the high 50s, and people they've come into the league and people felt like maybe they could work on that, but it still kind of stays there in the high 50s. And there tends to be struggles with accuracy. So there's one things I will say that he does have seemingly come into the league. And there have been a lot of quarterbacks who are, some of them Hall of Fame quarterbacks, some of them just good quarterbacks right now, and some of them past Atlanta quarterbacks that we'll kind of go over on the next slide with the statistics that have had worse starts to their career. So what are your 4s? Because these are just the ones I've kind of came up with. What do you think about that so far?
No, I like the 4. And the one thing we got to remember too is let's not forget this. He only had like 4 starts last year. So, and my hope was he would kind of have like that Kenny Pickett, right? Because Kenny started slow for Pittsburgh last year. And so my thought was maybe he just picks up steam. And this I know we're trying to like more evergreen. But the Houston game was it was great, right? So we're hoping he can build on that because Kenny Pickett, right? He was like what 7-2 in his last 9 starts or something. He was phenomenal. So that's what I'm hoping for. I'm hoping like maybe these first couple games, we're just trying to let him feel it out. But I mean, I was really scared after that Jacksonville game because he just didn't look like a quarterback. But the Houston game, he looked great. Like they were letting him throw the ball because that's the point. At some point, yes, I know we're a running team, but at some point you gotta let the kid throw the ball and see what we got. And so I'm more optimistic after that game because it seemed like they let him throw the ball, and man, he was throwing some balls into into tight windows, double coverage, and that's what you're like, okay, look, can he make those throws when you need to make those throws? And I know it's a small sample size, but I'll build on that for now.
Yeah, and I think it's a situation where you have to not, and we're only doing the Desmond Ridder slides here today, but in general, I feel like you have to preach patience with a lot of quarterbacks. With the quarterback position, you're asking these kids to come out at like 21, 22 and lead grown men on their teams a lot of times, right? Green Bay Packers are the youngest team average age at like 25, I want to say. And that's a pretty young team, but just think about it. You're a kid. Think about the things that we were doing at 21, 22, right? You're pretty much a kid and you're asking to come in and take over somebody's business because football's big business these days. You're pretty much asking the kid to come in and run this portion of your business. And it's a very important portion. You got to have the locker room buy-in. And this is all stuff that you got to have from a mental standpoint that's outside of what the physical attributes are, right? Because we know you got to be able to play the physical part of the game. And you must have shown some kind of ability to play the physical part of the game or you wouldn't be here, right? You feel like it's a combination of the two things when you're starting out?
Right. And that's the thing. It wasn't like you didn't see glimpses of him playing at Cincinnati. He's a winner, right? He's a winner. Like that's the thing. Sometimes we always forget. It's like, hey, like some guys will get drafted and they never won a game or they haven't like Trey Lance, right? He is a perfect example, right? He has all the
drafted on the intangibles, man.
All the intangibles, right? But he never won. At least you can point at Ridder and go, dude, won. I mean, I'll never forget when he played a bowl game against Georgia, and like Georgia won like last second, and they won on a field goal, and he sat there and watched them celebrate, and that was like, and it's like, wow, that is going to be the scariest guy next season, and he ended up taking Cincinnati to the college playoff games, and hey, you're going against Alabama, you can't. It's not like
it's over with, man. It's over with.
And and they play, they played a good game, and it wasn't like they got killed, but it's like you're going against Alabama. That's a tough matchup no matter what. But again, it's tough. We always talk about it. Guys can win, and he wins in college. He's never lost a home game, even in college or the professional. So you can't take that stat away from him, no matter what happens from this point on.
Yeah, that's true. And when you're dealing with kids this age, especially, and expected to come in and take over teams of like the Falcons, it's different than some of the people that get to go to teams like the 49ers. Like you see the Brock Purdy thing. We're going to talk about that a little bit more in the against slide, and we're going to talk about that a little bit down the line. But still, like where the fits matter, where these kids end up matter. And I would say Desmond Ridder was coming to a situation where it's not like we were winning playoff games before he got here, Eugene. I think there's a lot of people that need to be reminded of that. And when you talk to people, there's a sense that somebody should now only get 5 or 6 games before you're expecting them to be the next guy. These guys now have to play pretty much for the entire every week. They're playing for their job, it seems like. Now, we're going to talk about what just popped up on the screen here. Took me forever to put together is these stats of some other notable quarterbacks in their first year. And for our podcast audience, I'm going to go over each one of these stats for you and then kind of let you kind of react to them here, Eugene. So let's start here with Desmond Ridder. Wins, losses 5-4, completion percentage 65, 1781 on the yards, 6-3 on a touchdown interception ratio. 107 on the QBR, outstanding. for small sample size, but 9 games and 107 is still out pretty good. One 300-yard game, which was very recent. I think he had that with Houston, and 121 yards rushing, 2 touchdowns. So you see numbers like this, not exactly setting the world on fire. 9 games, 6 interceptions, not setting the world on fire. You definitely would like to probably get that about 7 to 8 on the touchdown, but still a 2-to-1 interception, touchdown to interception ratio. Okay, so let's go into some of our notable Hall of Fame. We'll do the Hall of Famers, and then we'll do the Falcons quarterbacks. Steve Young, Hall of Famer, 2-12, first year. I think this is with the Bucks, I want to say. 54% completion, 2282 on his yards, 8-13, so 8 touchdowns to 13 interceptions. QBR is 66, no 300-yard games, and 425 yards rushing, 5 touchdowns. We know that Steve Young is that original rusher, man. You know, Steve, he could run around, man. Peyton Manning, 3-13 his first year, highly publicized first year, horrible first year for Peyton Manning. 3-13, 57% completion, 3,739 yards, 26 touchdowns to 28 interceptions. He was slinging it, man. 71 on the QBR, 4 300-yard games for Peyton, 62 yards rushing. We know Peyton was a statue back there. He's not running away from anything.
No, he's not running anywhere.
Let's go back down to John Elway here, because we'll stay kind of in the past and then go to work our way up. John Elway, 4-7 through his first year of starts, 47% completion, 1663 on the yards, 7 touchdowns to 14 on the interceptions, 55 QBR, 1 300-yard game, 146 yards, and 1 touchdown on the rush for John Elway, running around a little bit also. Jalen Hurts, people were ready to bench him his first couple of years. How quickly people forget his first couple of years, people were ready to get Jalen Hurts out of here. Thought he forgot how to play football. And now he's on MVP trajectory. That doesn't lose any games. He was 8-7, 61% on the completion, 3,144 yards, 16 touchdowns to 9 interceptions, 87 on the QBR, 200 on the 300-yard games, 777 rushing yards. 784 rushing yards, 10 touchdowns for Jalen Hurts. Let's go to the Falcons fans. Falcons favorites here, because Falcons fans being here in Atlanta, Mike Vick comes up in every conversation. people want to put back. Let's call Vick off the couch and see if we can get him back in here. 8-6 his first year, 55% on the completion, 29-36 on the yards, 16 touchdowns to 8 interceptions, 2-1, just like Ridder is there. 82 on the QBR, 1 300-yard game, 777 yards rushing, 8 rushing touchdowns. We know Vic can run around quite a bit.
Oh yeah.
Matt Ryan, I think, has the best record on here. 11-5 as a starter his first year, 61% completion percentage, 3,440 yards, 16 touchdowns to 11 interceptions, 88 on the QBR, 2 300-yard games, and 104 yards, 1 TD on the rush there for Matt Ryan. So when you look at the stats here, and this is what I was telling you when I was Eugene, when I was doing these stats, it was very it was surprising to me. It was surprising to me when I was doing these stats, because I didn't necessarily feel like Ridder would be better in some of these areas, but I didn't know how bad some of these first starts were. And if these people, so let's go over the names again here for the audience in general, for our podcast audience, and especially for anybody that's in Atlanta listening. Steve Young, Peyton Manning, Jalen Hurts, Mike Vick, John Elway, Matt Ryan. We would have been ready to bench these guys halfway through their seasons with the patience that we have here in this city. Now, there's some subtle differences here, because for one, a lot of these guys were stars in school, and Ridder necessarily wasn't, right? Cincinnati is not necessarily a school you're paying attention to, but when Mike Vick was at Virginia Tech, lighting it up, people knew. People knew John Elway coming into the league. Matt was at Boston College, not highly published, but a high
Actually,
draft
he
pick
was.
though.
He was
Well
very
known. He's
yeah,
a
he
very
was
well known
really
guy.
he was well known out of he was well known at Boston College. He's like one of the
Yeah,
first. Like,
he played for a while there too. I think it's a
yep.
school. I think he was more known than the school was because he was
Yeah,
definitely
he was.
highly touted because he was drafted very early. I think we took him second, third. We took him very
Right.
early.
Yeah, the only one on this list that kind of wasn't was you can make a case for Steve Young because obviously he went to the
Is that BYU for Steve Young?
Right, BYU. Then he went to I think the Canadian League. I want to say, but
He was at Tampa Bay.
Yeah,
His rookie
right,
situation before
right,
he
and then
landed
Jalen.
in.
And Jalen again went from Alabama and then went to Oklahoma. So again, those were the only kind of two. But Peyton, Mike, John, and Matt, those guys were coming out, and you knew what you were going to get, right? You knew those guys they were going to give you a shot. But that's only two kind of your question marks were kind of like Jalen and Steve Young in the conversation.
What's interesting here is his QBR is that 107 is an outlier, and I expect that to come down as he plays more games. But a lot of these guys, John Elway, 11 games that first starting year, 14 games for Vic, 15 games for Hurts, 16 games for Manning. Like he got through most of those. Same thing for Matt. Matt got through all 16. 2-12, 14 games for Steve Young, and Ridder is a 9 game. So Ridder's hanging in there from a completion percentage, from a touchdown to interception percentage, from a QBR percentage. He's already had a 300-yard game. I don't know, man. I think this looks better for Ridder than people give him credit for in his first year. I'm not sure what they're expecting out of this kid. What is your quick reaction here? Because I'm not sure when this timer is going to switch over.
No worries. Yeah. So my only quick reaction is I did a quick search like because he was drafted in the 3rd round. So
Ridder was
history. Yes. So history has not been kind to 3rd round quarterbacks who've been drafted.
I can see that, man, for sure.
Right. So I looked at like just records of guys who were drafted in the 3rd round who won a playoff game. It's not a bad list. There's some good names, but when you go to winning Super Bowls, you got 3. You've got Russell Wilson, you've got Joe Montana. Again, not a bad list, and then you've got Nick Foles. So those
interesting.
Are
that's an interesting situation. Yep. I feel like that would get worse because what round was Tom Brady? Tom Brady was like 6th rounder or somewhere around there.
6 or 7. Yeah. So you've got right.
You can go ahead. And your boy, what's funny? It's funny that you say that because let's talk about Brock Purdy a little bit on our against. So our against here, not passing the eye test for a lot of folks, understandable. What I call the Brock Purdy effect here, and I will talk about that in just a second. And the fact that some QBs just have okay starts and then they just do nothing after that. Like after there's tape. So with a lot of these quarterbacks, although I do preach patience, I preach patience in that first year.
Yeah.
I don't really judge them until the second year and teams have a whole year of film on them. And then they can start the game plan for these quarterbacks. What do you do your year 2, your year 3? Like when teams have a lot of film on you now, they know what you like to do. They're going to try to take that away. Are you able to make the adjustments that you need to continue to be a pretty good quarterback? So that's why I would say the jury would still be out. It's not like I see this list and I feel like, well, we got our next John Elway. It's not like that. Let's not get carried away when I talk about some of those other players.
Right.
But it's just that I think there should be maybe a little bit more patience there. Now the Brock Purdy effect is everybody's always going to say now, because of Brock Purdy, well, you could take a guy in the last round. Look at what the guy in the last round is doing. And they're going to preach it as if it's not incredible. So one of the things you got to understand about what Brock Purdy is doing is he is being incredible. Like this is it's not normal. I don't think Brock Purdy's lost a regular season game yet at the time of the recording of this show. So that's setting the bar extremely too high, I think. And I think people are looking at Brock Purdy though, Eugene, and feeling like there might be other Brock Purdy sitting on benches out there somewhere. When people say, hey, well, let's just go ahead and throw this guy in. Let's throw this guy in. They think there's a lot of Brock Purdy just sitting around the league that you could just throw in here. Then what is your thoughts on this portion here?
Well, we saw that too in the draft, right? We saw how many more quarterbacks were drafted in this past draft. Yeah. So we saw that. Well, Brock is it's a unique situation. I mean, Look at the weapons he has around him. Look at the defense he has around him. Look at
Shanahan, skill
Shanahan around.
players.
I mean,
He's not making mistakes, man. He's not turning the ball over.
no, I mean it's a different animal. And I'm not saying Ridder doesn't have the weapons, but San Francisco, that team is built to be a Super Bowl team.
And they were a few years removed from a Super Bowl. Let's not get it twisted. They were the Super Bowl memory.
Right. And we are built as a playoff team. Like, we need to go in the playoffs and see what we're lacking. We need to go and get our teeth kicked in by a San Francisco or by a Seattle or whatever to see what we're missing, right? And if it's Ridder, then so be it. But we are a playoff team. I don't look at that team, and I don't look at the Falcons and not as a playoff team. We have talent. We have talent on the defensive side of the ball. We have talent on the offensive side of the ball. But I agree with you. The only issue is now, because when we went back to that slide with Vic and Steve Young and Peyton Manning, the NFL, the teams were, the value was not there, right? The value now in NFL teams is billions of dollars, right? So you're not waiting. Man. You're not waiting around. So like you and I, we've been texting back and forth, and this is it. So he has this season, and whether it's fair or not, this is his season. And if he can't prove it, then we're gonna go find somebody else, because you cannot. These are billion-dollar franchises at this point, not millions, not like they were before on our last slide. And
hundreds of millions though, right? Like they weren't like small businesses back in the day. You know? No,
but I mean, you could kind of wait. Like you could build. Like you could wait for your Matt Ryan. You could wait for your.
I think at your draft picks too, what made you wait for them. So I think that another thing with those is that they took those players were taken very early. Denver was lucky to get John Elway. So you have some players. Of course, Peyton went over Leaf, and they weren't just going to bench him after a year. So they were so much vested. And those were back in the day when they paid a lot to these quarterbacks. Right, and if we had drafted Ridder in the first round, we would have paid a lot to him. Right. But the round means that we can move off the money quickly. But I also would argue that the round we took him means we're paying him less, means we can continue to build around him if he's not horrible. Right. I think Personally, I would give him the rest of the year, because I told you before, if he ends up being horrible, the worst thing to me, guys, is being middle of the pack in any league, whether you're in basketball, I'm not sure how that works in baseball, but I'll tell you, basketball and football, that's nightmare status for me. Middle of the pack is nightmare status. And that's where I do not want to be here. I do think that he has some deficiencies, but I just don't want to throw the guy out now and not know what you really have. And I think the point of the previous slides and stuff that I had showed was to preach a certain patience. That's kind of where I got to. I got to the jury still being out here. Right. I don't think that his story is written. I don't think any player's story is written in 9 games, because I've just showed you, if we had stopped it there for these other players, we would have got rid of some Hall of Fame players, some really good players, if we had shut them off at 9 games. What are your thoughts on that?
No, and you're right. And here's a good point too. You have a great point, is let him go through the season, because the draft class is gonna have so many quarterbacks available, and we're probably we're gonna be probably 8-9 or 9-8. We're gonna be in that playoff. So we're not gonna be high enough for a draft pick, but we're gonna be in that spot to get a quarterback, right? So if Desmond, listen, we all want him to succeed. I want him to succeed.
What does he have to do, in your opinion? Because with me, looking at the trajectory he's on, I feel like if his name wasn't Desmond Ridder, then people would be more on preaching patience, because there's a lot of 100-yard games. I didn't go through all the game-to-game stats for these players, but believe me when I tell you, there's a lot of 111-yard games, 109-yard games, upside down touchdown to interception ratios. There's a lot of that when it comes to other players. If players have to play for their job every single week, it's not a good place to be in the NFL, because you can't, because it's such a high bar for comparison.
Yeah, I just want to be consistent. I mean, if he can, and I'm not expecting him to do like he did against Houston. I don't want 300 game, passing yards again. But if I can see consistency out of him, like command of like just the huddle, the play calling. I mean, that's my only knock on him. It's like you see glimpses of it, and then it just falls apart. And then that Houston game, it could have gone either way, right? It could have gone to the fall apart, but again, he thrived. Now he thrived against not a very good team, but and
I mean, 2-2. I think Houston's better than people give credit for.
they're better.
Stroud's slinging it. I don't
He
know
is
if this is
slinging it.
our yesteryear Houston here.
No,
I think they're a better team. And plus, look at Carolina, or look at what the Cardinals came and beat Dallas. Dallas was like 20-point favorites in that game when the Cardinals come beat them. You can take L's to teams in this.
You can, but it's like
league.
But that's the thing. You watch Josh Dobbs lead that team, and that's the difference.
Yeah, for sure.
Fred, that's my only thing. If he can go out here and lead the Falcons, then yes, I am with you. Let's keep him. But when you watch Josh Dobbs go out there and like even against Cincinnati, like, and he go out and plays his butt off, like that's all I want.
How many years has Dobbs been in the league though?
He's been around.
He's not a rookie.
He's not a rookie, but I mean, again, if he can just show some just that, but just my fear is I feel like we are building around a backup quarterback. That's been my only fear with him. I like him. I think he's good. It's just like when you start looking at guys, we watch football so much, and we watch it we watch almost every Sunday, and we can kind of I can just pick out guys really quick. And like we've already spoke. Like we already know, like right now, Stroud, Richardson, Young, that's the order of the rookie quarterbacks. We know that, but we still feel like those guys could be their franchise quarterbacks. Like I don't know that about Ridder yet. That's my only thing. It's like, that's, and I'm not saying Dobbs is going to be, we all know he's not going to be the Cardinals franchise quarterback, and God knows who's going to be that next year. But that's my only thing is like, I just don't see franchise him when the Falcons when they drafted Matt Ryan, like I knew that was a franchise quarterback because I watched.
Was it because of how high he was drafted too though? Matt was drafted like second, third,
I watched him play
third round.
But I watched him play at Boston College. I watched his demeanor. I watched the way he played, and I watched his he made throws like okay, like you watch Caleb Williams, you watch Drake May, you watch Sanders. Those guys are going to be you can tell those guys are going to be quarterbacks. Like when I watched Ridder in the NFL when in college, I was like, okay,
like an okay guy. Okay,
he's an okay guy, and it's not. I'm not knocking him, but it's like when I was joking with you, like don't sleep on Minshew magic, but Gardner Minshew is a backup. He'll hold your franchise, and that's my only thing with Ridder. Can he jump that? Can he just escape that? Jump over that, just that backup for us, but for me. So.
I don't know if he's going to be able to. I think that as soon as a better option presents itself, we're probably going to take it. That being said, though, you got to have a chance to fail. And I think that the stats have shown so far that he's not exactly failing all the way.
Right.
Like when you're putting down the numbers that he's put down through his first 9 games with the QBR he has through the first 9 games, they're not bad. And they're very comparable to other guys who have gotten a chance to come out here and suck for a year or two versus Ridder. He sucks a game and people want him out of here. So I'm thinking like the bar is set way too high. I think it's unrealistic. I think it's an unrealistic bar for any quarterback. But at the same time, the eye test does say right now, at least at the recording, that we would probably be in the market for another quarterback. I don't like getting another quarterback this year because I believe like it's over. And unless we're going to win a chip, like you got to be like the 49ers, in my opinion, like plug and play. You got to be ready, like the Jets, a plug and play team. If you're going to make an aggressive reach for a quarterback, you need to be able to win with that quarterback. If you make an aggressive reach for a quarterback and you're going 10-7, that's my nightmare right there. 10-7. You're just right outside the range of anybody great. And you got this guy now. that's just around. And you know that he's not the problem. Now you got to try to address a bunch of other problems. If you're in a rebuild situation, which I would call us mid-rebuild, I wouldn't say totally rebuild, but a lot of our skill players are young. They've been drafted in the last 2 to 3 years. A lot of these guys. These guys haven't been here like 7, 8 years. So I think we're still in the wait and see phase from our franchise, and I still think we're in a wait and see phase from Desmond Ridder. This has been For and Against Just the Stats. Thank you for checking us out. Look for us on Stitcher, iHeartRadio, Google Podcasts, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, wherever you find your podcasts, as well as TikTok and YouTube. See you next time.